Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery now available in Regina at sassbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast, 8EndNation edition.
See, I was going to correct you for a second. The second you said 3 Down Greencast, I'm like, Joel, it's the 8EndNation, and then you dropped to the 8EndNation, so do proceed, my friend.
Absolutely. Never question my abilities.
Or the fact that you got your shit together on this way better than I ever do.
Sometimes, yeah. Of course, Joel Gasson with John Fraser as always. And I just want to clarify one thing quickly, because I forget what we were talking about the one day, because we talk about a lot of dumb stuff.
We really do.
There was someone you said that pronounces your last name correctly. There was some athlete or someone that was a Fraser.
Yes, Chase Fraser of the Buffalo Bandits at the National Lacrosse League.
And then that got me thinking, like, I've been saying it right the whole time, right? I don't know why in that moment I was like, John's never said anything, and I feel like he would if I was saying it wrong.
No, you've always said Fraser. So the difference is people default to the radio comedy Fraser, right? Which is the French way to pronounce my last name, because there's an I in there, which is a derivative of the word strawberry. No problem. I love the French. Got nothing against the French. But you know what? I am a proud Scotsman, and Fraser, like there's a Z in there, is the correct way to say my last name. But like everybody, like when I was playing minor hockey, and number 30, John Fraser, it's like, fuck you! Like, get it right. And it's hilarious, too, because Lacey, before we got married, never got it. She's like, I don't get it. Her last name's Bohe. You can't screw up Bohe. Then she takes my last name. Then she got it. It took a week, and she got it. She's like, okay, I get it now. I understand your pain. So, it was great to hear it finally said correctly, because there's not a lot of Frasers that have done good with athletics, so... Maybe I'll play my last name for my I really and even the funny thing is you usually think like Joe Frazier, but that's a Fraser. It's an IZ. It's not an SER. So you have always said it right, and I think that's why you are one of my nearest and dearest friends.
I mean, the inside joke is they're your first, not your second, like you said in the one.
Exactly that.
So, of course, this is the 8EndNation episode where we talk all things curling, which means 6 people are going to listen. We will have friend of the program, Colin Hodgson, on in a little bit to discuss everything going on in the world of curling, as, of course, it was a eventful year with the Olympics. And we will get to the bottom of the most important question in curling was, what was up with this menu at the Scotties as he was coaching Chelsea Carey's team?
So good.
Yeah.
Like, I think the bar has been set so high for every other coach. Like, you look, he had charcuterie, he had sushi, like, and I can tell you, okay, we won't bring this up when he's on. I'm going to peel back the curtain a bit. He was thinking about making his own sushi in his hotel room. He won't admit to it, but him and I had that discussion.
That would have been something. I'll tell you that.
My sister almost went and got the supplies for him. So there you go.
But of course,
fun fact about Colin Hodgson.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the guy is basically an amateur chef. So, I mean,
he's actually a Red Seal professional chef. He's actually professionally trained as a chef.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not what he does as his job, basically, right now.
True. Not anymore. Now he's a curler. So.
Yes. Of course, as I mentioned, the Olympics came and went, and it would be wrong maybe if we did not discuss a certain story that has since appeared from those Olympic Games.
That I don't think could be more on point for you and I.
No. It was from the 50-kilometer mass start race in cross-country skiing. A Finnish skier by the name of Remi Lindholm I'm glad that he had a relatively easy name to say, because I didn't actually look up his name before finding the story. I just remember hearing about the story.
As soon as you said the Finnish skier, and I heard you start going to the name, I'm like, wow, he's going there.
Yep. An hour and 16 minutes it took him to do this course, and of course it's cold in the winter. It was in China as well. There were some days where it was colder than it was here. And something froze. And you're going to say, well, yeah, lots of things probably froze. Yeah. But he probably wished that he hadn't used his Manscaped that day.
I was just going to say the exact same joke. I was literally going to say he must have used his lawnmower 4.0 to perfection, because I feel like a giant 70s bush might have saved his equipment. I can only imagine the amount of pain having frozen equipment would be, and I am a man who's had a nerve nicked while they worked in my equipment. Mm-hmm. I'm a man who got circumcised when he was 18 years old, and I still cringe thinking it frozen equipment.
Yeah, he said it sounded like it was kind of like okay during the race. He said when the body parts started to warm up after the race, the pain was unbearable.
Well, you'd be so full of adrenaline, right? Like, it's a 50-kilometer race. You're at the Olympics. This is what you've trained your whole life for.
I mean, if you basically freeze anything, I mean, you're outside shoveling too long, you just kind of forget about it. You don't really think about it. And you almost lose feeling of it altogether, right? It's when your hands start to warm up a bit. It's like, okay, this isn't really that comfortable. Now think of that 100 times worse because it's down there.
Like I said, I am a man who is in the past too many years has had too much equipment, things touched with my equipment, and okay, I'm terrified now.
At least you didn't hop in a hot shower right away.
Oh God. You're not making it better, Gasson.
I think we need to make a sharp turn here and save this podcast, save this episode before we go down this path a little too deeply.
And as we said off the top, it is the annual 8EndNation episode, and we are joined... Nation. I don't know what the hell I'm... All right, that's it. I've fucked this up already. All right.
Off to a great start here.
That's it. Strong start. But we always have the strongest interview guest for 8EndNation, that being my dear friend, Manitoba champion, Olympic curling trials participant, best hair on the Grand Slam of Curling Tour, that being my good friend Colin Hodgson joining us. And Colin, all of our listeners are dying to know, and this is maybe the most serious and important question I'll ask you the entire podcast. What's in the glass?
I have a Winnipeg beer.
Oh!
TransCanada Brewing.
Nice.
I have a blueberry ale. It has it is in a glass right now, but the can itself has a nice polar bear on it. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful beer, and probably my favorite, especially when it's ice cold, like a polar bear would drink this beer.
Yeah, you guys are going through that cold snap that just left us here in Saskatchewan. So I love the fruity beers, and I haven't had a chance to try TransCanada. I'm driving through that way this summer. I'm going to have to do it then, because you've told me nothing but good things. For myself, for our sponsors, the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, I'm not going with a sponsor, but I'm going with one of our favorites. Joel, you tipped me off that the Uno IPA from Blackbridge is back. Mm-hmm. I went straight to my local Sobeys liquor store right after work today and stocked up on a 4-pack of those. If you like IPAs, it's perfect. It might be, I hate to say it, in terms of just a straight-up IPA, it might be the best in Saskatchewan that I've tried so far.
That's a pretty high bar to clear, I mean, if we're being honest.
It
but
really
that's fair. I mean, it's to each their own. I mean, it is a very solid beer. I definitely quite enjoy it. I don't know if it's my favorite IPA, but it's definitely one that's up there. For me, I was at Multinational over the weekend here in Regina, and I picked up a couple of their 500 IPA, which is, of course, celebrating their 500th batch of beer. Think of it basically as sports on steroids. So they've turned sort of their American wheat ale that's a little citrusy into more of an IPA with a little more bite to it, and it's just very drinkable and very wonderful overall. So if you happen to see that one out and about, it's just a purple can. It has the number 500 on it. That's about what it looks like.
I actually think I saw it, but I went with the Uno. The Uno is just one of my favorites, and it doesn't seem to come around often enough. But yeah, no, it's a good one.
To give our sponsors some love though, next week I believe the Pile of Bones Chocolate Stout is coming out, and it's got kind of like a Willy Wonka-esque type can art to it, and I believe there's actually chocolate. And this time in the past they've made it with just kind of working the malts to make it a chocolate flavor, but this time there's some actual chocolate in it. I feel like that one's going to sell like bananas, so if that's kind of your jam, you might want to jump on that one quick when you see it on the shelf.
Should I hide some for your coach, Rob Meakin there, Haji? He's a stout guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I you know what? He is my wine Sherpa. When it comes to finding an amazing vintage California wine, to be honest, I don't really know what Rob drinks, because if we're hanging out, in the hotel room, it's been COVID, we've been hanging out in hotel rooms a lot. Yep. He's the guy who he knows what I want before I want it. And then I try it, and I always give him the Fager wag, like, oh, you got me again, Rob. So I'm going to make it my goal at this Briar to figure out exactly what kind of beer he likes, and I'm going to report back to you guys on that.
Fantastic.
So, of course, Colin is joining us today because that is, of course, as mentioned, the 8EndNation episode as we talk all things curling, kind of on the last layer. It's a special year this year. Quite a bit to talk to. We're going to get into a lot of different topics from the Olympics to the Briar to the Scotties and the whole rigmarole. But, of course, I think the one on everyone's mind right now is the Olympics, as that has come and gone. Canada leaving with a bronze medal from Brad Gushu and his team out of Newfoundland. Pretty solid performance by them most of the week, I would say. And I think overall, maybe the theme of this Olympics now, especially 2 in a row, is, there's a lot of talk about Canada's performance and what may or may not happen and what should happen. We will get into that in a little bit. But I think it's also fair, as Colin, that we should probably be giving...
Oh, I'm having issues hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Good, yeah. We don't edit around here, so we'll see.
Is that my internet?
It might have been. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay. That's rare, or should be okay. But if I'm cutting out, let me know.
No, you sound good now. It's all good.
We will. We also don't edit, so this whole exchange is going to be it.
We'll see. I might cut it down a bit. But I think also, especially with the current crop of teams around the world right now, as much as we can talk about sort of, what's maybe happening with Canadian teams and the process of how we get to naming those teams, Colin, I think it's certainly fair that we should be giving these teams that are winning medals at the last 2 Olympics, especially, their own credit for doing it.
Absolutely. That's the trend. There's this rhetoric going on that everybody's catching up to Canada. It's to me, that's complete and utter blasphemy. Canada is very good at curling. Sweden is very good at curling. Scotland's very good at curling. Japan's very good at curling. And they're not doing it. They're not doing it because all the Canadian coaches are leaving and going and working for the highest bidder. Because that's not necessarily it either. There isn't enough money in curling to even make that statement, period. With maybe the exception that some of the host nations tend to have more deeper pockets to fund some of the coaches. Pia Lindholm left Sweden to go, work for the Chinese before the Olympics, and that's understandable. There isn't a lot of money in the sport, so why not have our best coaches, take the opportunities they can get? But Jennifer Jones had a Swedish coach. Victor Schall is one of the greatest leads of all time. He moved to Canada, married an amazing lady, and for me, that's really fortunate because I don't have to play against him anymore. So the thing is, there are new athletic young curlers who are putting in effort and changing the way people are thinking about things. I think what's happened is we've had a lot of tradition in this country and in other countries, and throughout that tradition, maybe that can limit some people's creativity and how they go about their business. Bruce Mowatt's team, for example, my goodness, some of the stuff that they're doing, I don't think it's because they have a training center specifically in Scotland for that. That team works together so hard. They're very bright young individuals who they push the envelope, and we're copying them. I work with international teams often because I want to get better. I'm not going to get better just working in our own country. I'm going to get better working with other players, other teams, and I'm in turn going to make them better. So that's a beautiful part of the sport, and I'm not much on the nationalistic side of we need to protect everything within our country, within our sport. I think we need to share that and to learn from others, and the whole level goes up. Unfortunately for some people in curling, that also creates a bigger divide between the elite curlers and the secondary level. That's been growing over the past few years, that gap.
It has been. Speaking of the gap and maybe the next generation, are we just like, for one, how happy were you for Nick Edin? Like, Nick's been there so many times. I know you guys are buddies. I've briefly met him a time or two. Just seems like a solid human being. I have a giant crush on Ethan Earhead, so obviously I was very happy for her. But is there another generation that we're going to see coming up here internationally, right? Like I don't think Nick's got much left. You're kind of seeing, like Gushu's basically admitted that this Briar's a swan song for him when he was speaking to CBC's Devin Haru. Do the other countries have that next generation, or is this like going to be, are we just living in Bruce Mowat world for the next, however many years, Haji?
Let's get this, let's make this really clear. Nick Edin is the GOAT.
Oh, 100%. Yes. No question.
Nick Edin is, maybe if other curlers had went to so many European championships, so many worlds, so many Olympics, things like that, sure, you can say that. But the fact is that Nicholas has been going to them all. He's been playing internationally. He's had 10 major surgeries. He was, I believe, he's flown he was flown out of the country for a major surgery. The stuff he's went through to stay on the ice as an athlete is just unbelievable. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He's got a huge following in Canada. There isn't many international curlers who have ever really accomplished that. David Murdoch is someone who comes to the forefront of my mind as someone very popular. But that being said, there have been a lot of players being blocked internationally by some of these great players. Bruce Mowat's team was probably just young enough. They weren't blocked by David Murdoch too much.
It seemed like a players crossover. Yeah, absolutely.
Anna Hasselberg has been in my opinion, one of the greatest teams I've ever seen on the ice. And they've been blocking Isabella Rana, who is Rasmus Rana's younger sister. She's went to world championships, university games. She's been playing in Grand Slams, kind of in the shadow a little bit. And she was the alternate for Hasselberg at the Olympics. And there's just so many great players that we've never heard of. And there are players in Canada that a lot of average curling fans haven't heard of yet. I think that, I think we'll get to it about what maybe we could do in our country for that, maybe later in this podcast. But there are so many young players out there, and we need to be open to giving it a chance, to giving the next tier, the next age of not only Canadian curlers, but international ones. Because everyone has their favorites. I get that, and that draws eyes. But wait until you see the next ones, because Bruce Mowat is the next ones.
Yeah, they're so okay. You mentioned Edin being the GOAT. If you don't follow international curling, he has 7 European championships, 5 world championships. The first men's curlers to simultaneously hold both the World Curling and European Curling Championships in 3 separate seasons. 3 slams at the Grand Slam, Pinty's Cup, it's absolutely ridiculous what this guy has done, and of course the Olympics as well. So you alluded to it. I just wanted to give some love for Nick Edin, because I remember me, you, and him sitting down in the Nutana Curling Club and having great conversation and getting to know the guy. So I was like, I think the 4 teams that made the men's curling playoffs at the Olympics, I'm like, I just hope everybody has fun, right? But you alluded to it, and I'm gonna kind of give the platform to you here. What could Canada do to be better at the international level, acknowledging that all these other countries, it's not playing catch up. These other countries have been great for years. But what could Canada do, Haji?
Well, we need internal discussion. We need to have conversation with the athletes. We need, as an athlete, I've never spoken to a major sponsor of our country, other than I am actually a sponsor of our country.
Right, I was just going to say that.
You know what? But as we haven't really had that opportunity, and I'm not really sure why, but I think the pressure of not medaling a couple Olympics in a row, which is incredibly understandable, but I think the public pressure hopefully gives us a chance to, sit back down at the table, figure out what are we doing. We talk to the stakeholders and the athletes absolutely are part of this. We need to figure out what's our feeder system. How are we going to give experience to all these young teams coming up when they keep getting blocked by teams like ours? If you're not named Jeff Stout, Mike McEwen, Reed Carruthers, Jason Gunlison in Manitoba, have you had national exposure on the men's side? No. And it's so hard. And most of these teams, like we're playing at provincials, and there are teams that we know are incredible, and no one's really heard of them. The Flat Brothers, who we played.
Colton Lott comes to mind. Matty Dunstone for years until he came here to Saskatchewan. Both come to mind, just off the top of my head.
Absolutely. We played Ryan Weeb's team in the semifinal or provincials, and the Flat Brothers are sweeping at front end. And I used to work with them just a little bit. I'm not taking any credit for what they've done. But I'm just saying, like, I had the opportunity as an adult to work with them as juniors, and now we're playing them in semifinal, and they probably should be beating us. Like, Connie Laliberte runs this amazing program. But why is it up to the provincial associations to be, working on performance for the competitive teams? I personally don't think that's where we need that to happen. Why don't we have mentorship programs with some of these, up and coming players? Tyler Tardy could have won how many world championships in a row, and he hasn't been to a Brier yet. Tanner Horgan has went. He's been an incredible young player, and he's grinding it out, just trying to get to the Brier. He's the youngest skip who went to a trials. It's just really difficult to make it, and our system's in place. I think we need to work on that. How are we going to do that? And right now, a huge amount of funding from partners, from ticket sales, from patch sales. It comes from from the Heartstop Lounge, comes from the Brier and the Scotties national events, which are huge revenue generators, which therefore fund the country. Is that going to be sustainable for international medaling, if that's what we care about? Do we care about it? I don't really have the answer to that. Some people do, some don't. It's just it's a struggle to figure out what are we going to do with this national championship? Do we need to separate and create a whole different national championship? And people call it Canada Cup. In my opinion, that's not going to fly because Canada Cup had a different identity. We need a new national championship. We need new, youthful, different sponsors. I'm not saying the others aren't youthful, but could you imagine the Red Bull Canadian National Championship where you have the best players in the country, regardless of where they're from? Do it earlier in the year. Get those, national champions declared. They can focus on their play, and then the teams, the let's call them. If we lose, we're going to be called the leftovers. What are we going to do to help the rest of the country prop them up? So, we lose the national final, and I'm playing with someone from 4 different provinces. Let's say I go back to my home in Red Lake, Ontario, and now I can play with a team and try to go to the Brier. And once again, we have this opportunity to have it as like an everybody's national, which it used to be. If you put 4 pretty good curlers together from your club, you could go to the World Championship. You could go to the Brier and win the Tankard. That could exist now, but it surely does not. You don't have a chance, and that's just the unfortunate truth.
Well, especially the way I'm curling this year. I mean, I'd be a great recruit for anybody. I'm shooting the lights out this year. And with your sweeping tips, Haji, it's a whole other level. But speaking of that mentorship rule, the coaching and everything role, you got to step into that role at the Scotties. And, of course, the number one thing with that, how the hell did you come up with that menu? Because that menu was fire. Sushi, charcuterie, like you put all the other coaches that bring sliced up bananas and sit in a circle to shame.
I'll be honest, there was only plan for charcuterie on day one. There wasn't a plan throughout the week to continue on, but as things snowball, there isn't fans in the stands. TSN's looking for some content, right? There's only so much curling we can talk about. Let's find something fun, and that was the whole point. Was really, we've got this great group of 5 women from Saskatchewan who are our wildcard team, and they haven't had a ton of games together this year.
Right.
It's a new team. They had an amazing start to the year. They got a ton of points, got in the wildcard game. But now, as a wildcard team, how do you remove that pressure? And as somebody who's been a wildcard twice now and played through that game, is how do you actually make it light and fun? That's the only way to get through that game. You need to enjoy your experience. So there wasn't a game, but as your wildcard team this time, because there's 3 wildcards nominated essentially into this one. How do we take the pressure off of that? So I asked all the girls. I said, all right, I have an idea. I want this to be fun. I want it to be light. I want to jump off to a good start. Let's do this. And they said, absolutely, that sounds great. So we had full on charcuterie, and then it, turned into what it was, where I think we all learned that sushi is actually a fantastic 5th end break snack.
Oh, 100% it would be.
Especially in, a colder environment like a curling rink. Because then
right, you can just hang out there.
Yeah. It was so cold. So cold. Coaching is freezing.
Really? The tournament itself, though, from what I can remember, it feels like forever ago now, since so much has happened between the end of the Scotties and now, both in terms of the world of curling and just the world in general. What I remember is a fun tournament that we saw some names that we didn't necessarily always see kind of toward the top. Andrea Crawford had a great run. The Territories got it in the playoffs. There's a lot of... It seemed like it was a fun tournament. Was it a fun tournament in person? And, is that kind of maybe what we can expect going forward, at least maybe from the women's game? Because honestly, John and I bemoan the fact of blank ends a lot in this sport.
We really do.
And no real blank fest do I remember from that tournament whatsoever. It was a pleasure to watch from afar, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. The ice was very good. John Wall was crushing it with the ice, and it does help, I believe. I don't want to speak for him, but I believe without fans, it's a little easier to control the buildings. Mm-hmm. The temperature generally was fairly consistent outside. If it changes outside, it might change inside a bit. But good ice conditions. It's a great building too. On top of that, that's very helpful. The event itself, though, was a blast. I would say, for me, that was probably the most fun I've ever had at a national event. A big part of that has to do with how fun. Yeah, absolutely. But I got less sleep as a coach.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you had to be up all night preparing charcuterie.
Last one up at night and the first one up in the morning every time for coffee. So when you got everybody's schedule, I was sending some of my previous coaches and current coach a lot of thank yous for what they do and a lot of questions of how do I not screw this up for the team. But our team had such amazing dynamics off the ice. It was just so much fun all the time. It was just a very enjoyable experience. But furthermore to that, as a male who's been to lots of national events mm-hmm. with other men, what I found this was so much more fun, and I want to take as much as I can from that experience and bring it back to my team, and just enjoy it. It was a celebration of curling, and it was a celebration of women's curling, and I learned a lot. The games are different in a lot of great ways, mm-hmm. and I think we can learn from that and take that to where we want it to go. I don't like the performance. You need to be perfect all the time. You have to, have your blinders on and go to bed at 9 p.m. and wake up at 6 and go to the gym. And those are all great things to do if they work for everybody. But enjoying the experience, I think that's more what it's about. And a lot of the teams who were there at the end were teams who were enjoying the experience. And, I was watching that and really enjoying and feeding off that too.
At the same time, are we looking, we talked kind of about the Bruce Mowat era for World, at least in the men's side. Are we really looking at, Carrie Anderson has to be the favorite to be Team Canada in 4 years, right?
Oh gosh, a lot happens in 4 years.
But still.
Yeah, like it's that team does a lot of things right. That team really works hard. They're very focused, very determined. They've got a good buildup of player, or good collaboration of players that complement each other well. And on any great team in any sport, or even workplace or whatever it is, you need complementary players who can make up for other people's areas of lacking. And it's no different in men's, women's, and any sport. I think that team they're good. They're very good, and they have fun. It's always about fun. I love it.
Absolutely. We love the fun and embrace the dumb around here. So that's what we're about. So we're glad that more people are embracing that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
and beers. I think they're like just walking down the hallway in the morning and seeing all the plastic bags with all the cans in it and the wine bottles and the takeout from the night before, because we weren't allowed to go out for dinner or anything.
Right.
Everybody's pretty much stuck in your hotel rooms, and I think there was probably a record broken this year for beers and seltzers and bottles of wine drank at a Scotty's. It was awesome.
Well, and that's it. Like, it's supposed to be fun. Curling is fun. You go to your local club. I can't step on the ice without being 2 beers deep. I know. I know Corey Kohaj.
Only 2?
Maybe 3. Draw weight really kicks in after 3. That's been my success this year. And I know even like Corey Kohaj, our GM at the club, who's like a national Canadian senior champion, does a shot of whiskey before every game. Like, it should be fun. It's an athletic sport, but doesn't mean you can't have fun. You mentioned carrying that fun attitude over, Hodgie. Obviously, you guys, Manitoba champions again, which was awesome. Great game against, like, speaking of those teams that we talk about that nobody really gives attention to, that are going to be really damn good. Colton Lott, holy crap. Like, he's going to be a great team here. But to you guys, going to the Brier, wearing the Bison, you've been to a handful now. I know when I was up way too late with my sister on Saturday night, I sent you a picture from your first Brier that the two of us have together, and we had some laughs over that. But what changes from that first Brier that I sent you the photo of, you looking like a young whippersnapper, to now this Brier? You've been to nationals, you've coached the Scotties, you've been to the trials, you've been everywhere. How does the preparation change from Brier 1 to this one?
Back then, I had bright eyes and bushy tail and lived and breathed curling, and that's all that really mattered. And I had such a passion for it, just being on the ice, the feeling, being a huge Calgary Flames fan, my first Brier being at the Saddle Dome, Lanny McDonald's there. What a overwhelming experience that was. Yeah. And I kind of envy that myself in that picture looking back. That sort of excitement is hard to hold down over the years, and right now it's like, well, how do I bring that youthfulness back? But it kind of gets clouded by the experience of it. You don't really learn anything from winning, you learn everything from losing. And I've lost a lot, but also been in a lot of positions in big games to have the opportunity to lose. So I think now would be, and now is a better time than ever for us to win that, because we're grizzled old vets. We've been there before. We know how to lose. So let's not do that. Let's enjoy the experience with everybody around us. I truly think at the end of the season there's going to be a massive amount of turnover in our sport. There's going to be a lot of people on that ice that we're sharing it with that I'm never going to be able to share the ice again in that environment. Having fans in the stands, it's going to be a boisterous environment with Brandon Botcher's team is going to play we don't play Saturday night, and I am going to be watching that game in the building if I possibly can. And
kudos to whoever put them in the same pool.
However, that's fantastic.
It was always going to be that way, I think, regardless of Epping or Gushu being in that wild card spot. It's really interesting. But I'm gonna look at this moment as something special, and that I've got the privilege to be there. And I'm grateful for my teammates for helping me get there. It was a tough provincials. It was really hard to stay in the games or to actually be in the games, and our season could have ended if we would have lost that final. And we found a way to win it, even though we weren't our best, which is something that maybe we wouldn't have done before. So the way it happened, the way we went through the B side of the playoffs, and to get in and to go through adversity together, I think that's the big difference. And I know we're going to be relaxed, and we're just going to enjoy it. And my family's going to be there, and I'm just very excited for that chance.
So when you are in the stands for that game between Botcher and Molding, my Uncle Dave's going to be there. So I think you need to sit with my Uncle Dave, because he's had some colorful words on the whole situation. We were having some rums at my sister's wedding, and he you got to find my Uncle Dave, Haji. I'll tell you that right now. It'll be a good time. But you mentioned,
I think I'm going to hear him probably from wherever I'm in the arena, so I don't know if I need to be directly beside.
Well, he's related to John, so I mean, we remember him at trials, right? So
and he's as the world heard Mike. Yeah. Have we ever told that story on the pod, Joel?
We might have, but I think this is the good episode to rehash. Not the once, but I believe the 3 times you were heard across the rink throughout the course of the week.
Right. So it was a Saturday night draw. It was one of those nights where I had no wife or kids at home, so I knew I could just sleep it off the next morning. All the guys from my fantasy football league are out with me, and my father-in-law, who I think is still to this day embarrassed by this story. But we're out, we're having a great time. We had a ride to the rink, so we even pre-gamed. I don't want to tell you where we pre-gamed, because my boss listens to this podcast sometimes, but we did pregame. We're having a great time. Watching Haji, we're watching you and the boys. And I remember Mike had a real difficult board weight hit for 3 that kind of would have broke the game open. And right as Mike makes it, I stand up and yell at the top of my lungs, "Fucking A, Mike!" Mike McEwen's grin, seeing your grin, knowing that I was heard, and then my phone blows up with 2 of my former teammates going, "Was that you?" I'm like, who else would it be, right? So yeah, there's the fucking A Mike story for you right there.
Oh, that was good. I think I remember my teammates. I think either Coach or Reed went, "Who was that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's Fraser there." Oh, Fraser. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. We had beers with you at the Natana, and they learned your voice, and they learned how to say the F word that day.
Oh, did they have? That was the same night that I was negotiating dowries with Mike for his daughter. That night. At the Nutana, yeah, because my buddies came out and you guys were curling right in front of us, and this is right after
I
Mike.
didn't hear that story.
Oh no, yeah, because you were talking to my buddies I came with, and so I was sitting beside Mike, and we were catching up, and Mike had just had his daughter, and I think Lacey and I had just had Connor. So Connor was young, Mike's daughter was young, and I'm like, okay, Mike, that's some good curling blood. I feel like we need to make this happen. And Mike and I, mostly joking, I don't think I signed anything, joked back and forth about, making sure our kids get together and maybe an arranged curling marriage. So that was the dowry.
It was like 40 head of cattle, 20 sheep in a barn, or
it was something like that. And a lifetime supply of hardline brooms.
It's not enough, John.
No, it's not. Those are some good. That's some Olympiad jeans there from Don. So,
yeah, the hardline brooms. So that's a nice touch.
Of course. I mean, A, Mike sells them, and B, I won't use anything else. I legitimately won't. Since the first time you showed me a hardline broom when we were curling at the Eiley Mini Worlds together many years ago, I won't use anything else. So I am, however, I'm on CoolBet right now, and you guys are plus 1,500. I'm going to throw down some dough on you guys to win the Brier, because I think that's ridiculous odds right now. I got to bust out my credit card here right away.
Those numbers will go down a little bit. That'll get to 13 or something like that.
Yeah, but still, if somebody's giving you like 130 to 1 on anything, you take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you really look at the situation, there's injuries. There are, team coming back from the Olympics that's not going to say that they're not going to be great. They're always great, but that's a big that's a big thing. So the odds are definitely going to be skewed this Brier over some past ones.
Do you think we could, as we love to say here, do you think we could see some chaos?
Oh, without a doubt, there will be a lot of chaos. Mr. Fleming is going to create a lot of chaos. He always does. I feel like Grattan is going to have a lot to play for.
Yes.
A lot to play for. So
100%.
And Team Canada has a different lineup. I don't think they've played a game together at this lineup. So in the way it is, maybe a couple games here and there, but I can't really think of any events they would have had the opportunity. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, especially in that pool is incredibly tough.
Yes. Incredibly
tough. It's going to be really interesting.
A $20 bet pays $300 on you guys. So I think I'm going to be placing that. While we go, we are going to talk actually some football on this podcast, being as we are a football podcast. Anything else you wanted to add, Haji? Heading into the football stand there, I love having you on here once a year. I know we talk all the time, and I admire your outlook on life. I admire, what you've been able to do and keep your head square and what you've done with Dynasty. And I just, I respect the hell out of you and always have. So now that I've gotten super soft, anything else you want to add before you say goodbye to 8EndNation?
Well, super soft things for super soft guys.
Just give me a princess birthday, a pink pony birthday party here.
Cupcake party.
That's what it
2022.
was.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely
Love cupcake party.
I'm thinking of the Letterkenny episode when they have the super soft birthday and they all love it.
It's the best thing ever. Like, why everybody wants a super soft birthday if they're
Who
being
doesn't?
Truly honest. We have a cupcake game, so we'll buy cupcakes. Yep. And if we win tough game, player of the game gets a cupcake. And that's how it goes. So we'll have that. I'll see if I can slap that on Twitter during the event. We'll have the cupcake game. But
is the jacket coming back?
The jacket's always there. The Team McEwen, the blazer is always in our bag, ready to go. One thing I did want to talk about was Rachel Holman.
Yes.
And her vulnerability was so wildly impressive to me. I want to talk about it all day long because my goodness, to have all the pressure they had to go there, to be to be a female athlete. And I've seen so much stuff over the years talking about, and I know Chelsea, I've seen a lot of comments about this or heard people say it out loud. And it's just a shame is talking about, well, they don't smile. They don't do this. They don't do that. It's about body image. And I watched Rachel out there giving it everything she possibly could. If she gave herself up, she gave up her personality for our country in moments that were incredibly difficult to navigate. And I was just, and John too, I was just so impressed with them. But that statement she made after, I just want to say how important I think it was.
Yep.
Can you imagine being her children in the future? And I don't think that looking back on that and saying, hey, I'd win a medal is anywhere close to as important about showing, the class, the character, the teaching moment she had about showing her vulnerability and seeing how so many people reacted to it. And I think that's just, we need that so much more in sport, that vulnerability that you don't need to be perfect, because look at what it does to people. It destroys them. After the Olympics, it's 85, 90% depression rate for athletes when they come back.
Wow.
It's just incredible. It doesn't matter if you win or you lose. You come back, you have the Games blues or the Brier blues or the Scotties blues. It's happened to me every time I've had a big event with lots of people. You get all these emotions and highs and endorphins going, and you come back. And you'd think, yeah, it's great. I did that and I'm home and I can rest. But sometimes you can't sleep at night. Sometimes your heart pounds so much that you can't understand it. And it's just amazing what she did. And I just wanted to draw a little attention to it. I think she's got tremendous character, and I look forward to seeing more of that from athletes in the future.
100%. The world needs more of it. I mean, Joel, you made the comment, it's 2022. We can all be super soft and that's it. And then the reception to that was, I think the thing that was coolest about that is the reception to it, that everybody was supportive of Rachel, and you probably had the odd person with, the sunglasses on with 12 followers that created their account last Tuesday. But it just, it was really good. And it was raw. And that's what we want to see from our athletes. And that's why I've always loved curling. You guys are all out there, right? So, again, thank you so much. I am putting $35 down on you guys to win the Briar, which will pay me, what is it here on Cool Dad? $525. So I can go get myself get myself a little bit of that. I believe in you guys, and let's go McEwen. Also, by the way, New Brunswick is plus 13,000. I might slap a sticker down there too. The molding effect.
He will mold them to victory.
Right, exactly. He'll mold them to victory. Okay, now with the good pun, we got to let Haji go. All right, Haji, thank you so much as always, buddy. Always a pleasure. If you ever somehow become a pro football player, we'll have you on weekly.
Hey, that's not happening.
All right, we'll keep it annual. Thanks, Haji.
Thanks a lot.
Well, speaking of the odds, we don't really have the odds out on who may be the next Riders play-by-play guy, as we do have to talk a little bit of football. I guess we don't have to talk a little bit of football, but this is a story that we can't really pass up not talking about at this point. It maybe was worth saving for another episode, but at this point, it might be too old by then.
Right.
To discuss it. That is, of course, the big news on back-to-back, sort of this week, was the resignation of Derek Taylor as the Riders play-by-play voice, and subsequently hiring of Derek Taylor as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers new radio play-by-play voice, of course, taking over for the legendary Bob Irving, who retired this past season. And I know both of us kind of heard a little bit about both of these things starting to happen before they did. Didn't really felt like it was our position to, sort of talk about a man's livelihood in person and something like that. But so when it kind of went down, not totally shocking. It has created some lovely content in the last 24 hours, shall we say, since really the news that Taylor would be moving from Regina to Winnipeg. And we're going to have a little bit of fun with it in a second, but I think, this is a position of a conversation that both of us, I think, are welcome to have. Yep. That maybe isn't going to happen in a lot of other places because neither of us, except maybe John at this point, depending on how serious he is, don't really give a shit about what the companies in this province, media-wise, think about us at this point.
No, really don't. No, still don't.
And I don't really blame Derek for saying, no, this wasn't for me. And the Winnipeg thing, whether, one led to the other, whichever order this happened, I don't know, it doesn't really matter at this point. But I don't blame him for going to Winnipeg either, because the play-by-play radio voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders should be considered an elite level job. It should be the number one radio job for football in this country. Yes. And it is probably, I would say it's in probably top 3-4 sports in this country, maybe top 4 at least, if you consider the Leafs, the Habs, and the Jays kind of in sort of the other 3 within that mix, the Leafs probably being the top 1 for sure.
I would agree, yep.
And the Jays kind of depends on how they're doing.
Right.
And so with that should come the prestige of being the Riders radio play-by-play guy, which there is to a degree. And I think as, from the public's perspective, you see it, you get it, you understand that this is a very important role, and you see whoever has that role in a certain light, and that's great. But the company that has the radio rights in this province for the Saskatchewan Roughriders football games doesn't treat it as such.
No, absolutely not. Nope.
And because, to me, it is such an important job that for at the absolute minimum for half the year, they should not be hosting a sports talk radio show without the help of a producer.
No.
I can maybe get it in the off season. That's a different discussion that maybe should or should not be had. But if you want to get a radio play-by-play guy or a top broadcaster to come do this job as it should be done by someone who is top-notch in this country, because that is what this job is, these roles need to be split, or else this will not be the last time this happens.
No, absolutely. And you look at a guy like Derek, and I've been speaking to Derek. I would consider ourselves good acquaintances since he was at TSN. I remember back on my old podcast, he was a regular. We'd had him on every couple months to talk football, and he put so much work and so much effort into that play-by-play job that you ask a man to do that for a play-by-play job in a sports talk radio show, he's going to put that level of effort in for both those jobs, and nothing else will be acceptable to him, right? The guy's working 12-hour days. The guy's, focusing on the writer play-by-play gig and basically booking guests for the sports cage by himself and all that kind of thing. And it's a damn travesty. Like, how the hell do they not come up with, we know Alex, the producer for the Green Zone. Mm-hmm. You and I both know him.
I've been a producer for the Green Zone.
Right, exactly. That's a full-time job. You get a little bit of, you don't have to be dependent on to be a foil. You're producing the show. That is your job. You're reaching out to the talent. You're making sure the show is good. You're supporting Jamie, right? And maybe sometimes you're going on air. I know you did it, and Alex does it. Like, the fact that Derek was asked to do all that, and now he gets an opportunity to go to Winnipeg, where his wife is from, where he was the play-by-play host of the Manitoba Bisons for years, where, trust me, I listen to a lot of Bomber football. I'm wearing a Blue Bombers hoodie right now. The play-by-play job for the Bombers is the play-by-play job for the Bombers.
Yeah.
Bob Irving, reports. He hosts the coaches show. He does things like that. He does auxiliary things to the primary job of being the play-by-play voice and promoter of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And with the energy and passion and knowledge and skills and talent that Derek has, letting him just focus on being a great play-by-play is going to be the best thing for him, for his mental health, for his family. And honestly, I heard I'm going to let my summer routine is I try to mow the lawn when the Bombers are playing football. And the reason I do that is because one of my TVs is almost always on some kid shows. It's what happens when you have 3 kids. So I plug in my headphones, put on CJOB at kickoff, I mow my lawn, I have a cold beer on my deck. The play-by-play voice being somebody I love listening to, somebody I respect, somebody that is so friggin' talented is huge for me, entirely speaking selfishly. If it was Rod Black, I don't know what the fuck I'd do. I'd lose it. That's like my summer zen time. I'm mowing the lawn, games in my ears, Bob Irving, Doug Brown. So when Bob Irving retired, I was terrified. To hear it's Derek Taylor, pumped. Sent him a text this morning. I'm like, dude, it's awesome for you. Totally selfishly, I sound like an asshole right now. Totally awesome for me, too.
Could it be awesomer for you, though?
It could be, as I officially would like to announce my candidacy for the Riders play-by-play job. I am good at football play-by-play. I embrace the dumb. I think I could host a sports talk show, even though I don't even do any work for this podcast. I have some connections. Again, I'm good at play-by-play. But I would like to announce my candidacy for the Riders play-by-play job. Let's go. Hire me, CKRM. I promise not to swear on the radio. I only swear on my podcasts. But fucking do it. Hire me.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop the latest school styles with an extra 25% off during Tanger Style, our biggest sale of the season, now through August 25th. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.